You're probably sitting there, scrolling through a dozen gaming rigs, wondering if any of them will actually give you the smooth, high-FPS experience you want without turning your desk into a heat wave. You don't want to drop a good chunk of cash on something that looks flashy but ends up throttling under real-world pressure. And you definitely don't want to end up with a machine that looks great on paper but can't keep up with the latest titles at 1440p or 4K. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The msi Aegis RS2 in pink is trying to strike that balance between eye-catching style and genuine gaming horsepower. It ships with an Intel Core Ultra 7270K, which sits in the middle of the newer 13th Gen-ish lineup, paired with an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5060 Ti. In practice, that combo means you'll be hitting well above 100 frames per second in most current AAA games at 1080p high settings, and you'll be comfortably sitting around 6070 frames per second if you push up to 1440p with medium-high presets. That's the kind of frame rate stability you actually notice when you're dodging bullets in Call of Duty or pulling off combos in Street Fighter 6. What really sets this machine apart from a lot of pre-built options is the 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler. Most budget-oriented desktops rely on a simple tower fan, which can get noisy when the CPU is pushed hard. The Aegis RS2's loop-through radiator stays relatively quiet even when the Core Ultra is ticking close to its boost ceiling, and it does a solid job of keeping the temperature under 70°C during marathon gaming sessions. For anyone who hates the constant whine of a stock cooler, that's a tangible quality-of-life upgrade. The storage and memory configuration is another practical win. A 1TB NVMe SSD means games load in a few seconds, and you won't be fighting for space after a handful of titles and a couple of big mods. The 32GB of DDR5 RAM is more than enough for today's games and leaves plenty of headroom for streaming, background browsers, or running a voice chat client alongside the game. In real-world use, I've seen people run OBS, Discord, and Chrome tabs with no hiccup, which is a scenario many entry-level rigs stumble over. Connectivity is future-proof, too. Wi-Fi 6E gives you lower latency and higher throughput if you're on a modern router, which is a subtle but noticeable advantage when you're in a competitive match and every millisecond counts. The machine also includes a good selection of USB-C and USB-A ports, plus an HDMI 2.1 output that can handle 4K 120Hz if you ever decide to upgrade your monitor down the line. That kind of flexibility often gets overlooked, but it saves you from buying extra adapters later. Now, let's talk about the aesthetic side. The bold pink chassis with programmable RGB lighting is a clear statement piece. If your gaming setup leans toward a neon or pastel vibe, this desktop fits right in without needing a case swap. On the flip side, if you prefer a more subdued, professional look for a home office, the color might feel a bit out of place. It's a personal taste factor that can make or break the purchase decision. Who should actually consider the Aegis RS2? First, anyone who wants a ready-to-play system that doesn't require a DIY build. You'll pull the power cable, plug in a monitor, and you're in the game within minutes. That convenience is valuable for folks who lack the time or confidence to assemble parts. Second, gamers who want solid 1080p performance with a clear path to step up to 1440p without swapping the GPU. The RTX 5060 Ti isn't the top-end card, but it punches well above its price tier, and the cooling solution ensures it can sustain those clocks for longer periods. Who might want to skip this one? If you're chasing 4K ultra-high settings or want to future-proof for the next generation of ray-tracing heavy titles, you'll likely outgrow the 5060 Ti in a couple of years. Likewise, if you're a competitive esport player who relies on the absolute highest frame rates and the lowest input lag, you might prefer a desktop built around an RTX 3080 series or higher, even if it costs more. Lastly, the pink exterior could be a deal-breaker for those who need a neutral look for a shared workspace or a streaming backdrop that doesn't clash with other branding. There are a couple of practical trade-offs worth mentioning. The machine's power supply is adequate for the current configuration but doesn't leave much headroom for a major GPU upgrade. If you think you'll swap to a higher-tier RTX card later, you might need to upgrade the PSU separately, which adds cost and effort. Also, the case is a mid-tower with limited internal space, so adding more than two 2.5-inch drives or a larger aftermarket GPU could get cramped. Those constraints don't affect the out-of-the-box experience, but they're good to know if you plan to tinker down the line. Overall, the msi Aegis RS2 delivers what it promises, a smooth, high-FPS gaming experience right out of the box, with cooling that stays quiet and temperatures in check, plus a storage memory combo that